This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure to order Jamie Glazov's new critically acclaimed jihadist psychopath. How he is charming, seducing, and devouring us. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, charged in the United Kingdom for gathering in a public place when some protests are more equal than others. With us this evening, Fiona Hine, a freedom fighter in the United Kingdom. Fiona, what a pleasure to have you on the Glazov Gang.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Fiona, and what an honor to speak to such a courageous and brave person in our world today, and those in our audience that might not know this case will understand why I just said that. Katie Hopkins has just written an article about you at Front Page Magazine. It was called Britain's First Test Case Under COVID Laws. And so you're going to court very shortly, very soon. Tell us why.
So for me, I felt quite strongly about the lockdown legislation that was implemented here in the UK. I understood at the beginning, not going out, sort of being slightly restricted, but then having read the Coronavirus Act, which is the legislation implemented here in the UK, I realized how draconian and totalitarian these restrictions were on every single bit of freedom that we actually have, and also completely disproportionate to this threat of the virus. So I read the Coronavirus Act, which is a 350-page document, and in that saw certain restrictions that I thought went too far. So I started doing a little bit of research, questioning everything that I read and saw, found quite a few things that didn't add up. And there's a big movement going on in the UK now, which is a sort of Keep Britain Free movement. And as part of that, I went along to a freedom rally, an anti-lockdown rally. That was very apolitical. There wasn't, it was different sides of politics, different races, everyone sort of coming together very, very peacefully to stand up and say, we don't agree with what's going on. And there were speeches going on, there was just people talking, but there was a huge amount of police presence. So we felt the full force of the police. So the legislation says that we're not allowed to gather in a group of more than two. There was about 300 people following certain rules like social distancing, but most hugging each other because we don't believe in everything we see and hear. So I was approached by a police officer, asked to go home.
I just want to interrupt for 1 second. Just want to interrupt Fiona, so I just want to get this in there. The rules are also that you can't be there for a reasonable excuse, right?
That's very true.
So I want to talk about this later. So go ahead.
Okay, so yes, I was given a dispersal order, is what the police call it, and directed to go home. I refused that dispersal order. I said, well, I have my human right, my civil liberties. I'm allowed to be in this place now. I walked away from this police officer and he approached me again, attempted to fine me. Under the Coronavirus Act, you can be fined up to, I think it was about £100 on the spot. Again, I refused that. And then they advanced to arresting me. Now, out of about 300 people, they made 19 arrests that day. And 13 of whom have been charged, who will be going to court with me.
Okay, and look, and this particular crowd, it was like 200-300 people, right?
Yeah, I'd say at the largest point, it was about sort of 3 or 4 hours.
And overall, a combination of people opposing the lockdown. There was some opposition to mandatory vaccination, but overall, the opposition of curtailment of personal freedom, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Disproportionately implemented, yeah.
Right. So the police move in, disperse the crowd, make arrests, and then they take you. Wait a minute now. And one of the people they arrested along with you was Pierce Corbyn, right? The brother of the former Labour leader?
Yes, yeah. He was arrested about sort of 15 minutes, I suppose, before I was. I watched him speak. He was handing out flyers. He was talking about again, the draconian lockdown laws and how disproportionate they were. He touched on a little bit of 5G, and he touched on, the mandated vaccines, which he feels very strongly about, body autonomy, medical autonomy, which we're soon, I think, might lose.
Right.
With potential mandated vaccines, which could very, very well happen. They've said that they won't do it, but I think it's been implemented in, I think Germany have mandated vaccines now. Some are mandated, like the MMR vaccine at, a very young age.
Yeah.
But something so untested and created in such a short space of time with no proven safety is very questionable.
Oh, absolutely. And Fiona, some of the frightening things that I'm reading and researching from a lot of people in the know, they say what's coming next is, oh, the kids in school got infected. We're going to have to take them to safety. And if the parents want to see their children, they can, but they have to be vaccinated. This is really scary stuff that we're entering, So, but let's get to that in a second. So overall, in terms of what I just said, some people are saying this is one of the potential possibilities of what's coming up. We're entering a nightmare world. So we have an individual like you that's concerned about freedoms. Am I correct that they held you in a dirty police cell for like 12 hours on a Saturday evening?
Absolutely. It was, again, the most ridiculous thing, a peaceful person. And in that particular police station, they held 8 other protesters, all peaceful people, not violent crime, holding someone for 12 hours and releasing me at sort of 2:30 in the morning in London as a woman, having to get home. Luckily, another protester actually drove me all the way to my home. Otherwise, it would have taken me about 2 or 3 hours. But yeah, so the police cell they actually kept me in clearly hadn't been cleaned. There was no care for this virus that we could potentially catch. There was no social distancing, obviously. But yeah, it was quite an unpleasant experience.
Okay, so very sorry that you went through that, Fiona. There's a couple angles here. Let me go with this angle here. They take a lovely lady like you protesting for freedom, put you in a dirty police cell for 12 hours for this peaceful expression that you tried to voice peacefully. About 2 weeks later, we've got thousands of violent protesters engaged in thuggery, mayhem. We can describe what those protesters, and if we even want to call them protesters, the rioters, engaged in all this. Am I correct that not only did the police not treat those people the way that they treated you, but they actually enabled and facilitated these violent riots?
Exactly. I mean, I saw the violence that was going on in America, and I can't say that it was on exactly the same scale, but it was 2 weeks later, when the coronavirus legislation is still in place, the same rules are still in place. They did not implement the Coronavirus Act. That was a political move by Scotland Yard, who are in charge of all the police forces in the UK, that said, we will be facilitating these BLM protests to make sure that they're safe and there's no violence and real crime, not just gathering. And I believe, everyone deserves a right to free speech, the right to gather and assemble about a certain cause. I wasn't too sure about how I felt about the BLM. Something happened in America and you've got, young people on the streets here who are in their teens screaming at police officers, calling them murderers, when the awful thing that happened in America, it didn't happen here. So I couldn't quite comprehend really the veracity of some people. But yes, so the police didn't implement the Coronavirus Act, and they actually gave a curfew instead, which wasn't adhered to, again, which wasn't punished. So over a 3-week period, I think there was 3 weekends where we had tens of thousands of people descend upon London. There were 240 arrests in that time. All of them were for public disorder, violent crime, criminal damage, assaulting police officers and emergency workers, and possession of weapons and drugs. So those arrests, 200, are valid under normal laws, which you'd expect. But only of those 240, as of about 2 weeks ago, only 12 of those people have been charged. So I can't figure how 240 people get arrested and then 12 people are charged. And at my, the protest or the rally that we went to, 300 people in one day, 19 arrests, 13 charged. So it's completely inconsistent.
Yeah, I think I understand the logic here. If you're involved in rioting for Black Lives Matter and you're breaking shop windows and hurting police officers and damaging property and hurting people in the name of Black Lives Matter, and you're not wearing a mask, that's not a threat to public health. But Fiona Hine, if she peacefully stands in a little group of people peacefully protesting for individual liberty, that's a threat to public health. That's how the logic goes, right?
Exactly. It's, COVID doesn't care about a cause. I don't believe everything there is of COVID. Facts don't care about feelings. So if COVID stays away from a BLM protest, but then turns up at my protest with less people, and we contained ourselves in a public park. We didn't walk down the streets. We didn't stop traffic. We didn't cause mayhem. There was people just picnicking. So I do find it quite frustrating. I don't know what you call it, because if it were the other way around, it would be called racism.
Right.
And that, and I think that was the fear. I think the political fear, the police thinking, well, if we implement the Coronavirus Act, they're going to think that we're racist because we don't like BLM. But some people don't even know what BLM is.
Yeah, I think if BLM is perpetrating violence and hurting police officers and breaking windows and not wearing masks, I think that's okay. As long as you're not Tommy Robinson trying to protect English girl from Muslim rape gangs, that everything's fine as long as you're not Tommy Robinson doing that, right?
Exactly. And unfortunately, someone like that, and I think on the second or third large protest, the patriots came to London because they'd seen the Churchill statue, the Abe Lincoln statue, the cenotaph, the war memorials being defaced with racist written on the side of the Churchill statue, and they saw this happening and they thought, well, the country wouldn't be what it is today if it weren't for those people. Winston Churchill, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have the liberties and the democracy that we have now.
Yes.
And they talk about the Commonwealth being inherently racist. I don't think we're not proud of absolutely everything that society is currently built on, but that's the same for every country.
Thank you, Fiona. What purpose does it serve to arrest a person like Fiona Hine, to hold her in a prison cell for 12 hours, to pursue court action against her? Why are they doing this?
I can't see any benefit from doing it. I think that the politics come into not implementing the Coronavirus Act at BLM for fear of being called racist if they did. Arresting someone like me, I think it's a financial gain. I think they can charge you an undetermined fine if you're found guilty. So I think it's a money-making exercise. I think it's entirely political. And I think it's massively discriminatory against people like me, who I'm trying to fight for everybody's freedoms. And I don't see the benefit of prosecuting someone like me at all.
Right. Well, absolutely. And of course, everything that you said, and overall, they're trying to silence a certain group of people that remain brave and courageous. And there's a totalitarian agenda going on. Fiona, we have to go. Two quick things. First, I want to ask you, so much respect for you, Fiona. There are so many people just shutting up, doing what they're told. They're going to be lining up for these vaccines, and they're going to be the good sheep that they're told to be. And we see it all around us. I just want to ask you, what makes you different? Where do you get the courage and the bravery to do what you did? Because you knew there would probably be consequences to what you did. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what motivates you to put yourself on the line in this way.
I obviously knew there would be consequences. I also knew that it could potentially end up in me being arrested because I wouldn't accept a fine and I wouldn't be told to go home. So for me, having read the Coronavirus Act, I've read the legislation, I've seen how bad it can get, which suddenly, I mean, some people are waking up to now, but I've known this since March. It's been there. Anyone can see and read this information. It's been right in front of them this whole time. But I think I've never felt so strongly about something. And I don't have children, but I have friends that have children. And I now don't want to have children because I worry about the world that we could potentially be living in. And I think I have nephews and nieces. So I think fighting for their future is probably what's pushed me to be such, an activist for this cause, because it's so important. It could change our entire, it could change the world. What I see that they're trying to do, will impact on everybody. So I think that personally it's affected me in that way. But also I want to be able to have a relatively nice future. We're in a recession now. We're taxpayers. We're paying for that. So yes, I don't see anything lawful about what's happening. So that there's a judicial review against the government at the moment. The appeal is being heard from the 28th of September, I believe. Now that challenges the lawfulness of the entire Coronavirus Act. So every restriction they've put upon us, that will challenge every single part of it. And hopefully that will be successful, if not entirely, hopefully in part.
Okay, fantastic. Fiona, we wish you the best in this trial coming up. Keep us updated. And people can help you by also assisting you with the legal costs. We're going to put up a link on our website when we post this interview. But I think people can also Google at GoFund Legal Fees Freedom Campaign Fiona Hine, right? You have a GoFundMe campaign?
Yeah. I mean, part of that is because this is an interesting point. None of us, because it's not in the public interest apparently, are entitled, anyone charged with the Coronavirus Act is not entitled to legal aid, which is basically funding to have a duty solicitor with you. It's a public defender, I think what you'd call in America, that we wouldn't have to pay for. We're not entitled to that. But Shamima Begum, who I'm sure you've heard of, who's fighting for her citizenship back after going to Syria to join the jihadi war against the UK, she's entitled to legal aid to fight for her citizenship back. So part of the cost is going to be, part of the cost is for my legal fees, and ideally I won't get found guilty, but if I do, then a fine could be tens of thousands of pounds.
Okay, our hearts are with you, and we pray for you. We love you, Fiona. The Glazov Gang's 100% behind you. Where can people find you if they want to support you and also speak to you, etc.? Facebook, Twitter?
Yeah, Facebook. I've got a different name on Facebook, but it's I can give you that's Fiona Rose Diamond. Change that.
Fiona Rose Diamond, right?
Yeah, Fiona Rose Diamond. If you want to search for me.
Okay, fantastic. As long as our audience knows. Fiona, good luck, and we hope to see you soon, and pray for safety for you. Okay?
Thank you very much, Jamie.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Fiona Hine. And thank you very much for watching the Glazov Gang this evening. We'll see you soon. Good night.